See the second artistic intervention of the night, and I'd like to welcome Christian Mio-Leclerc, the artistic director of WALTZ BINAIRE, and he will introduce his work to you more in his presentation.
Thank you. 1 second. I have this friend with me, and while I try to get some water, I will make him speak for me.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, then who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Oh, yeah? Huh? Okay.
So this is the young taxi driver, completely in love with the idea to protect a prostitute from her pimp. Then he buys himself a gun and goes home and plays this little encounter with an imaginary opponent. This is what he does, but that cannot resonate with you because you're probably not a taxi driver, not from New York, and you might not bought a gun to protect a prostitute from her pimp. But that is just what happens in that movie. It's not why it happens. Why it happens, and what you probably know, is he goes home. He looks in the mirror, doesn't really know who he is, and he says, "Who am I?" That is the only story here, and that is why it is so important. A question that also Narcissus was not able to answer, and I think this guy probably has the worst portfolio ever. So he broke too many hearts because he was basically not a nice guy. Then he was cursed to only love himself, which he did in the first place, and then he drowned while trying to kiss himself, and obviously he can't swim. So this whole portfolio is not really a winning thing. However, there is something poetic about it, because as soon as he was born, Theresia said he might have a long life under the sun if he fails to recognize himself. And there's some beef. It weaves together our ability to understand who we are with our ability to survive. And that is the only reason why over hundreds of years we still pass on that story, saying, don't look too close in the mirror or you might drown in yourself. That is the poetic beef, not the what. Today I believe we witness the most spectacular mirror of all times, which is technology. Why? Because it says so many deep sensations about us, and we could use them to reiterate forgotten stories and think about them again, discuss about them again, even though we feel they're not necessary anymore. However, technological discoveries are normally used for sensations. They become a thumb stop on Twitter. Someone said, Big Gun, for instance, is a beautiful discovery, right? It became a thumb stop. I had 20 minutes to think about it. Next. But I think it could be deeper sensations that we spend more time with and that we hopefully pass on generations and generations. Now, I have a studio called WALTZ BINAIRE, and that's exactly what we try to do. We want to investigate how we can weave more sustainable and more poetic stories into continuously accelerating media and technology by actually using their narratives and asking why. And we do this for the big industry in the field of marketing and advertisement, as well as independent art, because we believe it matters to both. Because as if this attention span of us is decreasing, then both have a problem. It doesn't matter if someone won big prizes with new art, because if you have 6 seconds in social media, no one will listen. And if you have a new project or a new product or a new company that you want to motivate others to listen, they won't listen if you don't find the poetic contribution. That's what's interesting to us at WALTZ BINAIRE. Now, I'm originally a dancer, to be more precise, a robot dancer. So I grew up in Eastern Germany, and when the wall came down around '92, hip-hop came to Europe, and I was directly into it. Now, Today, actually, my first robot dancing teacher is here. He taught me to do so 18 years ago, and I'm very thankful, amigo. Now, however, it's a very difficult business, and I don't know why I tried it so long. I just know that it's a very weird sensation of being a human trying to be a robot. All of a sudden, you feel like it's so stressful, it feels like death. Because somehow you feel like this human thing in you is fighting everything. It doesn't want to be like all 90 degrees. It wants to be organic, but you have to shut it down. I kind of felt more alive doing so. On the other hand, I'm a computer scientist because my mother forced me to become a computer scientist also when I was 12. She was a software architect, and for her, the idea of an algorithm is the articulated sorting of your thoughts, and she thought I might be a little bit messed up. But what I try to do is code little pseudo-organic systems. So I like this idea of this machine being dead, doing something that looks alive. So it started with Turbo Pascal and Christmas trees, and it evolved over time, so everything that you see today is only generated with mathematics. And yeah, this both I did just for fun, because that's what kids do, but now 25 years later, I would like to describe my philosophy as followed. So we behave more and more digital, right? Look at me, I'm even a robot dancer. And then we have machines, and they become more and more organic. And if we lay them on top of each other within an artistic process, we don't see the redundancy that we just created. We see more clearly what makes the machine, and the human, the human. It's exactly those things that we were not able to copy. And I have that thesis that computer science was in the beginning just about this. Trying to copy everything that we humans do, to kind of hope about this religious magic, saying there might be that one thing left that we cannot copy. And then we finally understood what makes us. So let's take this more precise example of those guys here. They're top 4 world-ranked b-boys. They dance since 10 to 15 years here. They're completely physically beyond Olympic gymnasts. It's a whole different planet. They're from the moon. It's unreal what they're able to do so. And they basically generate this quality all by themselves, dancing on the streets, since they are about 8 years old. And while they did this, they feeded their whole family with street dancing. And that's how their body looks. So within their physical ability and their responsibility as children that they have for their whole family, they're quite close to being perfect. They're like robots. But if you pick one out and you go a little closer and you project true mathematical precision in their face, all of a sudden they don't look perfect anymore. They look more fragile. Through the microscope of mathematics, they become more organic than they have been before. And that is, to me, poetic. Artists, we like to work with technology, which you see on the left, a representation of it, and poetry. Now, they're not necessarily the same, and let me try to describe what's the difference here. We can attract with technology as long as it's a magical sensation and cause attention. Unfortunately, that's it. And as long as we have that intention, we have to weave poetic stories so we resonate with them. Now, the whole discussion about what is a technique and what is actually a poetic expression has a long discussion in art. And I would like to give a little overview of what it meant in dance in the 20th century. So this right here, this is not a poetic expression, even though it is very poetic. It is a technology. Now, this is Martha Graham, and she's the legendary inventor of the modern dance, the first big revolution after ballet. Now, her idea here is a set of rules, how to communicate and how to behave in order to demonstrate suffering people. It is very known, as you still saw in the 70s, people fainting in movies like this because they have learned how to move like modern dancers. However, this is a cable, it's a technology, it's like a virtual reality glass, it's not a piece. This right here is a piece. This is Sacre du Printemps, The Rite of Spring, by Igor Stravinsky, done in 1914. And perfectly released to the beginning of the First World War, he created a piece so dark towards classical music like Aphex Twins or heavy metal. People were like, what's that kind of crazy rhythm? How can you be so crazy? And the ballet dancers, Nijinsky, they danced with their heel down on the ground as if they wanted to say, let's go back where we're coming from. It was a horrible piece, and people associated it actually with the First World War, saying, well, maybe we lost our virginity, the ritual of spring going into the First World War. Now that is a poetic expression. 50 years later, Pina Bausch said, let's take this music again and tell a whole different story about the ritual of spring. Maybe it is the ritual of spring, the losing of the virginity, that when we grow up and we treat each other the way we shouldn't, when we fall in love and all the drama starts. Maybe that is the ritual of spring, and maybe let's use and combine this with the technology of the suffering people. And she brought it together, and that gave such an explosion towards the whole market of modern dance that it finished the technology of modern dance. No one wants to see it anymore. Why? Because someone said it perfect, and we were able to move on. So if you today think that fainting like this is cheesy, it is only because she said so. She moved culture, and we were able to move on and tell new stories. Get rid of that technology and discover the next technology, the era of contemporary dance and contemporary art. Now, currently at the laboratories, we are very interested in artificial intelligence, of course, but not necessarily the technology, because that's what scientists do. But searching for our small Sacre du Printemps, what is the most poetic story we could possibly tell that hopefully resonates with others? And I saw many algorithms, and they just didn't relate it to me. I didn't felt what could be done here. But then I saw this algorithm. It's called image to text. It's an algorithm that looks at this image and turns it into a sentence. And I was completely crazy about this algorithm, even though it's not visually at all. But I felt this idea that I see things, and I decode them, and you hear them, and you encode them, and then you see them too. That's completely magical. It's telepathy, and we don't know any other thing that is able to perform this on our level of complexity. I thought we should maybe do something with it before it becomes a thumbstop on Facebook. So we investigated it not from a scientific perspective, but from an artistic. What could it now look at? And more importantly, as we turn this into an artistic sensation for humans, what do you always look at and never fully understand? A good example, for instance, is art. We took photography and showed it to this algorithm. And he's very good at actually understanding what's in that image. But as soon as it gets more crazy, of course, he gets problems. And here's the thing. You get problems too, defining what's in there. Maybe that's the sense of this artist. And that's my favorite one. That makes complete sense. As this is a baseball player, you see the stick, you see the ball, you see. But I'm very sure the Bauhaus performer is not happy about him being a baseball player, but everything kind of makes sense, and we liked it. Then we continued actually performing a Rorschach test, saying like, tell us how you feel. And we did this 1 year before MIT, just saying. And if you see also a close-up of a bird on a tree, then the possibility that you're psychological sick is by 82%. So you feel like this is a sensation. It could be a nice thumb stopper. It could be something that you laugh about, but it doesn't matter to you, because you've probably never been tested with this thing and you don't care. So we continued asking ourselves, what could be the thing that you all look at the most, that you basically see the most often, yet you have no idea what it is? And we thought maybe, again, it's yourself. You look at yourself and you have no clue what it is. So we built a machine that does the same. So this is Narciss. It's a small robot with a naked body, and that's his motherboard. And on top of it, he has a little head, which is a web camera. And we placed this naked body with his head in front of a mirror, forced him to only see himself. And on the back of his body has a little screen. And on that screen, we can look at what he's currently investigating, and he writes down in little text what he thinks he is. Now, why do I think this matters? Consciousness in general has been probably the mother of all discoveries. So we found out, oops, I exist. I'm not sure if it went down like this, but I can't state it, first of all, because I'm an artist, and second of all, because no one knows. So let's say it was like that. I exist. And in that moment, I started to communicate with others. I started to pray. I started to design my environment the way I wanted. It is the mother of all discoveries. At the same time, however, it's the origin of all ugliness. Because the moment we found out that we are conscious, we defined and pointed out at everything that is not conscious. So we divided the world in two different ones. For those that are like us, and we created heaven. And for those that are different than us, and we created hell. So this combination, being very close, we thought might be a nice poetic story. And so here, please meet Narciss as probably the most useless machine ever created. At the same time, it's the first machine that performs what's holy to us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. What's very intriguing to me about your art is that that's clearly narrative-driven and very poetic. So I was asking and wondering myself, current technical intelligence consists in big parts of offering interfaces to organic, neuronal, mental, and social intelligence. And in the same way, maybe your art does that by combining myth and machines. Can you relate to that your storytelling is embedded in a socio-technical context, like for instance in Narciss?
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure.
Yeah, storytelling.
I think that is, that's my task, or that's what I would like to accomplish. I do believe that's my only chance to resonate. And I would like to give an example also from generative design. If I use data from others, then combine it with software from others to make an artwork for others, then my people will discuss with me about who is the ownership in the art market of who? Others. There is no connection. The only thing I possibly can do is finding a meaning where there is none before. So I think it's our obligation to, like Pina Bausch said, it's not about what we dance, it's about why we dance. So we need to find a why. That is not necessarily the task of scientists, but definitely, in my opinion, the task of artists. And that's why storytelling is important. So again, with this, for instance, I couldn't care less what he says about himself. And we didn't order Balanescu Quartet playing Mother for him, or the most expensive crematorium for 60 million euro here in Berlin for him. It's because we are pathetic. It's a piece about humans and not a piece about robots. Yeah.
Then it is also very much about resemblance, that humans are always looking for resemblance to machines or something that they can relate to. What narratives would you say can technological development not replace, and what challenges do we have to look for answers for outside of the realm of art?
I'm not sure because if the technology can replace or something, it would describe if we are unique or not, and I'm not sure if I know this or if I could ever become an authority in this. That is probably the idea of digital creation. Maybe a little big for me, but for instance, maybe our intention to be special is quite unique. That doesn't mean that we are special, but we search quite a lot. We sit here and discuss. Narciss doesn't care, like if I break down the mirror, he still looks straight on and describes whatever is in front of him. But we have a very big interest in ourselves, and that might make us very special, yeah.
Are there questions from the audience right now? Yeah.
Hello, I have a question whether Claude Shannon was an inspiration to you, because his ultimative machine was a useless machine. When you turned it on, then it turned itself off.
No, I like it. I wish I would have done something so cool, so cool, so quick. Yeah, not really. Like I'm very inspired by Turing, the Turing test. But not in a way, and I think the test has been many times misunderstood. He's a mathematical genius, but his imitation thing has nothing to do with mathematics, and it was completely misunderstood. He said, basically, in my opinion, or in my words, he said, well, I don't know if humans can think, but I'm continuously asked if machines can think. Well, I don't know. What do I know about humans thinking? I know that they continuously talk. That is their behavior. He's actually a behaviorist. Now, all that And all of a sudden, I'm so fair to say, well, you can think. That's what we do when we are fair to each other. So whenever there will be a machine that we talk to, then we need to be as fair to that machine too. Now, people started investigating how they could make machines talk. He never was interested in this. He actually talked about humans and their idea about them self-thinking. And that is somehow what inspired to me a little Narciss. I'm not saying it's conscious. I want to question if we are. Yeah. And it's the same narration with biased data. Also in our words, there's a weird duality about digital behavior and digital entities and our entities. It's very weird that all of a sudden those machines become biased. I think it's a perfect time to keep them biased as much as possible and then really sink it in and feel it. How is that feeling what we have created? Now, this data directly comes from our behavior. We put a lot of people that are minorities in prison. And all of a sudden this machine thinks minorities belong to prison. We'd be like, you can't say that on stage. We have morals. Well, it's the perfect time to think about our morals, how much they resonate in space.
Okay. By that you were already talking about reflection, awareness and fairness. Do you have any concluding ideas or an idea about how art or the interaction of art and technology can help to hardwire these principles into our future developments of technology, maybe, and tools we use?
I'm sorry, I can't really tell simply because I can't imagine humans without either one. Yeah. And there is no art, there is no technology, and vice versa, I do believe. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Because otherwise, a big applause for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And two very short announcements. First of all, we're going to have a 5-minute setup, change of setup now, where you are invited to have a drink outside, but you only have this 5 minutes. I'm very strict about that. And then we all meet again inside here and going to see the performance of Replica that we already talked about and are looking forward to. And then I also like to thank, in the name of State and Fraunhofer FOKUS, the audience already for being here and witnessing all the wonderful artistic renderings of AI and hearing reflections, how technology and art can interact and how that can provide us with insights for the development of technology. And I thank you very much for that. And also I would like to announce that the State Studio, who curated this evening, has its opening on the 27th of October in Schöneberg, and you're all very warm-heartedly invited for that as well. Thank you very much, and see you in 5 minutes.